3 spine-chilling true terrors exposed. Haunted legends, cursed encounters, and sinister secrets. Claire wiped the sweat from her brow, the greasy rag smearing the already grime-coated counter of the diner. The place buzzed with the chatter of regulars spilling secrets and conspiracies. But it was the night that began to feel different, thicker somehow, as if the atmosphere was clinging to her skin. Just then, her phone buzzed angrily on the counter. It was Doris. The elderly neighbor's voice was shaky, filled with urgency. "Claire, you need to be careful," she croaked, her words scraping against Clara's senses like nails on a chalkboard. "There are shadows that watch and doors that open on their own." Claire scoffed, brushing it off. Doris was known for her wild stories. But then, a scream ripped through the diner, sending terror racing down Claire's spine. The jangle of bells above the door seemed to echo the wail, twisting her stomach into knots. Mia, Jamie, she thought, recalling she had left her kids home alone, the very thought suffocating her with dread. She darted toward the clock, punched out, and shoved cash into the tip jar with trembling hands. At home, the sky turned a deep bruised purple, and foreboding clouds loomed like a predator. Claire rushed in, calling for her children with rising panic. Silence blanketed the house like an unwelcome guest. As she reached the basement door, a faint, rhythmic thumping pulsed from below. Adrenaline surged as shadows danced in the corner of her eye. "Mia? Jamie!" she yelled, her heart pounding louder each moment. She found them at a trapdoor hidden in the hallway, something she never even knew existed. With greedy hands, they pried it open, and curiosity overrode her maternal instincts. What lay below was darkness, a staircase spiraling into the unknown. Fumbling their way down, Clara's breath quickened. Damp air clung to her skin as the basement revealed its haunted remnants, dusty photographs, forgotten toys, and echoes of families who had once lived and loved in a house now turned ghostly. Just then, a loud crash jolted Claire, forcing her to pivot around. A dark figure darted past her, cloaked in shadows yet all too familiar. Back upstairs, Clara's phone buzzed again. Doris had sent another message. "The neighbor, he's not who you think he is." Clara's stomach flipped as realization dawned. Their once seemingly safe neighborhood was now a tangled web of horror. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The light flickered ominously, stretching and twisting shadows along the walls, mocking Claire's attempts at reassurance. The kids peeked down the dark staircase, wide eyes filled with innocent terror. Meanwhile, the knock on the door rang through the living room, slow, deliberate, as if someone was counting the seconds until their fear boiled over. Was this the safety she thought she could always rely on? Claire squared her shoulders, her heart racing. It was time to confront the darkness and find out exactly who or what was lurking in the shadows of both her home and the community they once trusted. The door stood still, an ominous portal that beckoned her into uncertainty. What waited on the other side? Clara's hand trembled as she gripped the doorknob, the metal cold against her palm. Each knock resonated, echoing like a countdown. The rhythmic thumping from the basement faded, replaced by a heavy silence that wrapped around her like a vice. "Mia, Jamie, stay back," she whispered, not daring to turn her eyes from the door. Their faces, lit by the flickering light, were pale and wide-eyed, reflecting fear she had never wanted to show them. "Mom, who is it?" Mia's voice was small, quivering. "I don't know," Claire replied, her heart racing. What if it was just someone in distress, or worse, someone sent to harm them? Another knock. This time, longer, more insistent. The hairs on Claire's neck stood on end. "Don't open it," Jamie shouted, his voice cracking. Claire swallowed hard as she backed up, looking at her children. Their instinct for safety wrapped around her like a warm blanket, yet the ominous knocking drowned out every rational thought. With a burst of courage, she stepped forward again. I have to. We can't live in fear. She turned the knob, breathing deeply, letting the overwhelming dread wash over her like ice water. The door creaked open slowly, as if unveiling a sinister secret ready to spill. But no one stood on the other side. Hello? Claire called, peering out into the encroaching darkness of the evening. No sign of life, just the gusting wind that rustled the leaves outside. Relief washed over her for a split second. Maybe it was just kids or someone playing a prank. Just then, from the corner of her eye, she glimpsed movement. A shadow darted across the yard, quick as lightning. It stopped abruptly, turning back to face her. Mom! Mia cried, tugging at Claire's shirt. The figure, illuminated only by the distant streetlight, seemed far too familiar. It was Mr. Calvert, their neighbor. Gritty, unsettling thoughts spilled into Claire's mind. Doris's warning echoed. He is not who you think he is, Mom. Close the door, Jamie urged fiercely, panic rising in his voice. But Claire instinctively stepped outside, curiosity mixing with terror. Mr. Calvert, she called, the words sticking in her throat. He didn't answer, just staring with hollow eyes that seemed to absorb the light around him, like a void ready to consume everything in its path. Claire, he finally spoke, his voice raspy and stretched thin. You need to leave before it's too late. What do you mean? She asked, the tension thickening the air. What's happening? Why are you out here? He glanced behind him, as if something lurked in the shadows, something he feared and understood all too well. Trust no one with that. He dashed away, consumed by the night, leaving Claire with a chilling sense of dread. Every ounce of her wanted to flee inside, to shelter the kids, but a deeper, darker urge compelled her forward. Stay there, Claire shouted back to her children, stepping away from the protection of the dim light. She had to know. Something was very wrong, and the truth clawed at the back of her mind like a ravening beast. Suddenly, the rhythmic thumping from the basement picked up, louder than before, frantic now. Panic surged within her. Mia? Jamie? She called out, her voice shaky. Claire turned on her heel, sprinting back towards the doorway. But just as she reached the entrance, the basement door slammed shut as if 100 hands were pushing against it. They screamed. A primal fear took hold as she rattled the knob, but it wouldn't budge. What had she unleashed by opening that door? In the heart of the silence, something whispered, a breath of words lost to the wind. It was chaos waiting to unfold, and Claire was standing firmly in its path. Would she find the courage to uncover the mysteries beneath, or would they be swallowed whole? The shadows seemed to move closer around her, breathing, waiting, and behind her, the sound of something scratching echoed from below. Claire's breath came in short gasps as she pressed her ear against the door. The scratching from the basement had transformed into a low scraping, like nails against wood. Each noise sent icy tendrils creeping along her spine. Stay back, she shouted again, her voice barely containing the tremor of fear. Mia cried, her petite frame trembling as she clutched Jamie's arm. Get inside. Now, Claire barked, turning her focus back to the door. Adrenaline surged through her veins. The fear was no longer paralyzing. It was awakening a raw instinct for survival. Unsure of what she might find, she took a step back from the door. Shadows danced in the dim hallway behind her. Was it just her imagination, or had they grown larger, more animated? The basement door, solid and menacing, was now an enemy, its presence palpable and threatening. The thumping resumed, a frantic beat that seemed to echo her racing heart. What is down there? She muttered to herself, edging towards the door. But then laughter, sharp and cold, erupted from the depths of the basement, slicing through her thoughts. It was the kind of laughter that sent shivers through her bones, like icy fingers creeping up her back. Claire recoiled but kept her eyes trained on the door, desperate to understand what had shifted in her world. Suddenly, the door rattled wildly as if something was trying to break free from the darkness below. Claire faced her children, terror mingling with determination. We need to leave. Right now. But as she turned to flee, the floor below her screeched in protest, the sound resonating like a death knell. Something was wrong, deeply, horrifically wrong. The heavy thud of footsteps echoed through the house, and Claire froze, her pulse hammering in her ears. Mia, Jamie, upstairs. Now, she ordered, forcing her throat to remain steady. But deep down, she feared that even the safety of their rooms might not protect them. They raced past her, feet pounding against the floor, and Claire felt the weight of finality within their fleeting footsteps. She lingered just one moment longer, the instinct to go down and confront whatever haunted the basement, battling against her maternal instinct to keep her children safe. The scratching grew louder, now paired with muffled whispers that seemed to seep through the door. Let me out, it came from deep within the walls. A voice too familiar, too desperate. Claire's hands balled into fists. Who are you? She demanded, fighting the urge to bolt. The darkness swirled around her, suffocating and thick, and she choked on fear. With a sudden burst of courage, she yanked the door open wide, prepared to face whatever terror lay beneath. But the basement was empty. The air felt heavy, thick like fog. She peered into the abyss, the dim light barely illuminating the first few steps. Shadows clung to the corners, shrinking away from her gaze. Claire took a step down, her breath hitching in her throat. Jamie's voice echoed from above, wrenching her back to reality. A flicker of movement caught her eye at the edge of the staircase, something darting into the dark. Claire squinted hard. Was it a figure, or simply her imagination? Kids, lock yourselves in, she yelled, her heart thundering. Then, a crack of wood splintering jolted through the house, vibrating the air around her. The door slammed shut behind her. She had not closed it. Claire spun around, eyes wide with confusion, but she was too late. The basement door was now locked tighter than ever, trapping her in darkness. Panic surged. Where were her children? She ran back to the door, slamming her hands against its surface. Let me out. But the world fell silent. No reply from above. Only the rhythmic thumping echoed in the air, a countdown to her fate. A whisper of dread winding its way into the corners of her mind, and from the shadows behind her, a low voice crept closer, dragging despair in its wake. You wanted to know what would she discover next? Hidden behind layers of forgotten darkness? Would the truth offer freedom or suffocate her in despair? Claire's heart pounded in her chest as she stood frozen in the dim light of the basement, the air thick with dread. The low voice echoed in her mind, a haunting remnant that seemed to swirl around her like an unseen fog. You wanted to know. It taunted her, freezing every thought that raced through her head. The oppressive darkness pressed in closer, the edges of her vision fading into nothingness. Claire swallowed hard. She could still hear her children's screams, the raw panic from moments before ringing in her ears, but she had no way of knowing if they were safe upstairs or if something sinister was already reaching for them. With trembling hands, she fumbled around for a light switch. Just as she located it, a shiver shot down her spine. The basement felt alive, each shadow pulsating with hidden intentions. When the light flickered on, it did little to chase away the shadows swirling around her. Instead, the illumination seemed to reveal the true nightmare. A series of old photos hung on the walls, their glass panels cracked, faces obscured by layers of grime and age. Something within those eyes stared back, and each absent gaze sent goosebumps racing over her skin. Claire edged closer, compelled yet terrified. The photos depicted a family, but not her family. They felt foreign yet oddly familiar. Each one appeared to age as she looked, slowly changing from carefree smiles to despairing frowns. Unable to resist, she reached out, her fingers brushing against the glass of the nearest image. The instant contact sent a jolt through her hand, the raw sensation almost electric. What are you? She whispered, recalling the chilling laughter from before. What had they done in this house? Her chest tightened at the thought. Suddenly, a faint sound broke through her thoughts. It came from deep below the stairs, a soft scuttling like tiny claws on concrete. She froze, adrenaline flooding her system. The whispering returned, echoing her name, more urgent now. Claire? Come closer. No, she yelled, backing away instinctively. But the basement door remained locked, the only barrier between her and whatever lay beyond. She felt trapped, both physically and mentally, the weight of isolation pressing down like a heavy shroud. A pale light flickered suddenly, casting long, crooked shadows across the walls. The source came from underneath the stairs. She dared a glance and caught a glimpse of movement, something small and quick, darting just out of sight. A gasp escaped her lips. Was it an animal or something more sinister? Mom? The voice of Jamie pierced the silence like a knife, but it was distant, almost muffled. Are you there? Jamie, she called, her voice betraying her fear. Stay up there. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone. Even as she spoke, a part of her mind screamed for her to take action. The voice had lied. It wasn't just silence she faced. Something was lurking in the shadows, something that had been waiting for the moment she stepped through that door. As she turned her back to the stairs, the basement seemed to shift. It wasn't just the flickering light. The air thickened with a palpable tension, like the moments before a storm. Then she heard a low thud, followed by a shatter of glass. A deep rumble reverberated through her legs, vibrating right up to her core. She spun around to see that one of the photos had fallen, glass shards glinting like knives on the floor. Above the crackling light bulb, a dark shape began to form, seeping into the light from the shadows that had been creeping ever closer. The whispers amplified, swirling like a tempest around her. And amidst the chaos, Claire felt her sanity teetering on the edge of despair. What awaited her in the shadows? Was it a ghost, a memory, or something more incomprehensible? Each passing second drew her deeper into uncertainty. Claire had entered a place where the past hunted, where truths burrowed beneath layers of darkness. Mom, that word rang out again, yet this time it was different, disjointed, almost as if it were being spoken by someone or something that was not her son. It crawled across her skin like ice. Straining to see, Claire braced herself. She could feel the cold breath of fear whispering behind her. She knew she had to act. Would she find her children? Or would she doom them all by uncovering the secrets that waited just out of reach? The darkness shifted. Whatever it was moving toward her. Not everything should be unearthed. But who would make it out alive to tell the story? The shadows thickened, creeping over the ground like tendrils of smoke. Claire felt her heart race, every beat echoing in her ears. She was not just in a basement. She was ensnared in a labyrinth of nightmares. The murmur of whispers grew louder, like 1,000 voices begging to be heard, their urgency pierced by Jamie's distant cry. Claire, the voice twisted in the air, inhuman and pained, shaping the word into a haunting melody. Chilled her blood. She turned back to the stairs, hoping to find a way out. Yet it felt like the more she moved, the more those shadows encased her. Get a grip, Claire, she muttered to herself, the trembling of her voice betraying the very resolve she was trying to muster. A crack of glass on the floor snapped her focus again. With shaky hands, she crouched down and picked up a shard. The jagged edge glinted ominously, reflecting the dim light in sharp flashes. She might need it if whatever was hiding in the shadows attacked that as she stood. The weight of the glass in her palm almost provided her some comfort. Just at that moment, the darkness shifted violently. A horrific creaking echoed from the stairs, as if inviting her closer. Claire's breath quickened. She felt every fiber of her being urging her to run, but instead, she crept toward the source of the unsettling sounds, drawn by a magnetic pulse she couldn't resist. Then she saw a figure emerging from the darkness, blurry at first. It hovered just beyond the reach of the dim light like an unfinished thought. Claire's stomach twisted. The shape twisted, morphing between shadows. But its eyes, they glowed, too chilling, ethereal points cutting through the blackness. Mom again, that familiar voice called out, yet it was tainted. Claire could feel something was wrong. Help me! A wave of panic washed over her. Jamie! She screamed, hoping for real affirmation that her son was still up there, safe. But the only response was silence, drowned under the weight of darkness. A low, guttural laugh filled the air, wrapping around her, tightening like a noose. "He can't hear you." Claire, the disembodied voice, slithered through her mind, sinking into the very essence of her fear. "Yes, already lost." "Shut up." Her voice cracked, a mix of rage and terror fueling her. "You're lying." But deep down, she felt it, the gnawing doubt. This basement held too many secrets. With her heart pounding like an out-of-control freight train, she forced herself closer to the shadows. "Show yourself," she demanded, holding the shard of glass defensively like a weapon. The figure stepped closer, and for a terrible moment, it appeared to be a woman, shrouded in darkness. Her face twisted in a ghostly smile, but the eyes, they whispered of sorrow, despair, and a horrific knowledge. "They've been waiting for you, Claire," it hissed. Just as we waited for them, the whisper made her knees buckle. She gasped, stepping back, but found herself unable to tear her gaze from the haunting visage. "What do you want?" she cried, her voice a thin thread over the rising tide of terror. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed above, heavy thumping, frenzied, as though something dreadful was clawing up the stairs ever so slowly. The cries of children, muffled and desperate, crescendoed in Claire's mind, pushing her further into a spiral of panic. "Leave them alone!" The words ripped from her throat. She had to get to them. Claire turned to head back towards the stairs when another crash filled the basement, this time accompanied by a disembodied laugh. "You'll see them soon," the figure said, fading back into the shadows, eyes flickering like dying embers. The reality of that suggestion twisted deep inside her like poison. All hope felt like it was slipping through her fingers, but Claire couldn't give in. She needed to reach her children. Fear clawed at her throat as she stood before the basement door, heartbeat thumping like war drums. Time was running out, and the little voice upstairs was fading. What darkness was at play here? What awaited her as she stepped into a possible doom? The door loomed, creaking, like a long-buried secret ready to be unearthed. If she dared to open it, what horrors would she unleash upon her family? The voices grew deafening. "Mom!" But deep down, a part of her whispered, "You have to know." With a deep breath, Claire reached for the doorknob. Would she step into salvation or a nightmare waiting to unfold? Claire's hand trembled as it hovered over the doorknob, her fingers cold and clammy. The whispering voices seemed to swell, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. "Mom!" The desperate call pierced through the static of her mind. She knocked against the swell of fear, wrestling with the vertigo that threatened to swallow her whole. With a sharp inhale, she gripped the knob, turning it slowly. The door groaned as if it had been asleep for centuries, protesting her intrusion. A sliver of light spilled into the dark basement, revealing jagged edges on damp walls and the jagged outlines of shadows dancing menacingly just beyond her perception. "Jamie!" she cried, a broken plea that echoed off the wooden steps above. There was no reply, only the deep rumble of silence that made her skin crawl. She pushed the door further open, heart thumping in her chest, dread pooling in her stomach. As she stepped into the light, the air shifted, thickening with an unnameable tension, a pause before calamity. Shadows leapt and twisted, reforming into grotesque shapes that clawed at her sanity. The space beyond was dimly lit, flickering in and out, trapped between light and dark like a drowning man sinking deeper into the abyss. "Mom!" A familiar voice emerged from the chaos, but it was layered with something unearthly, a distortion that heightened her senses. Was it really him? "Jamie?" she called, desperation edging her tone. Her foot moved cautiously to the first step, and the echo rang against the walls, a reminder that she was not just alone, but profoundly isolated. Suddenly, a figure darted from the edge of her vision, catching her breath short. Claire spun around, clutching the shard of glass tighter. "Show yourself," she demanded, sounding braver than she felt. The shadows shifted, revealing a small silhouette just beyond her reach. It was a child, a girl, hair stringy and matted, eyes wide with fear. Claire's heart broke at the sight. "Jamie?" she croaked, stepping closer. "Help me!" the child cried, But as Claire moved, the girl faded, swallowed by the pitch black that surrounded her. Panic washed over Claire. Was this some cruel trick? No. Come back, she yelled, straining to reach the fading wisp of a child. But the shadow consumed it. The laughter returned, echoing through the dark with an unsettling familiarity. You can't save them, Claire, they're trapped. Like you, the voice dripped with malevolence. It slithered around her, winding tighter, stinging her skin. She felt the walls closing in, the shadows lunging at her. The immediacy of danger ignited her instinct. Now or never. Claire turned back toward the door, her heartbeat drowning her thoughts. Her voice rang out again, louder this time. I won't let you take them. They are mine. With that defiance clawing at her lungs, she flung open the door, stepping through the threshold into the narrow hallway leading to the living room, breathing in the familiar scent of home, laced with a dread she had never noticed before. The house creaked and groaned, whispers swirling like an angry storm. It felt as if the very walls were watching her. Where are you, Jamie? I'm coming, she shouted into the oppressive silence. Before she could move further, something slammed behind her, the basement door crashing shut with a finality that reverberated through the old wood. Claire's breath caught. Trapped behind her was only darkness. She felt her heart pounding, louder now, drumming against a terrifying realization. The house wasn't just old. It was hungry. Shadows flickered in the periphery, whispering, taunting. Each step she took forward felt heavier. Mom! The voice was desperate now, slipping further away, distorted by the sinister presence encircling her. Claire took a breath, ready to chase that voice, but first, she had to make a choice down the left hall to the basement's hidden dread, or right into the living room, where shadows danced like puppets waiting to pounce. The thrill of terror rolled over her, mixing with the despair for her children. It was time to take a risk, but the oppressive air felt thickening. What if the choice she made sealed their fate? Just tell me where you are, she shouted into the silence, knowing full well the house was never meant to let go. Each step forward weighed heavier than the last, but somewhere deep in the darkness, she felt that familiar pull, calling her. And as she moved toward the shadows, she heard it, the low rumble of laughter swell behind her, echoing down the hall. The question hung in the air. Were those cries a warning, or an invitation? With her heart racing, Claire's grip tightened around her glass shard, breath caught between the need to find her son and the terror of whatever awaited her ahead. What if this was the beginning of the end? Would she find Jamie, or had the darkness already claimed him? Before she could dwell on her fears, the ground trembled, the walls shook. Something was coming. Time was slipping away. With a last surge of determination, she plunged down the hallway, every instinct screaming for her to run. But she was drawn forward, compelled into the shadowed depths ahead. What awaited her in the heart of the darkness? Would she uncover the truth or lose everything in her pursuit? Claire hesitated at the threshold, weighing the decision of which path to take. Left or right? Each corner of the house was shrouded in a thicker darkness, more impenetrable than the last. She could still hear Jamie's faint cries echoing in the distance, a sound tinged with panic that spurred her onward. With a deep breath, she chose the hallway to her right. The ground beneath her feet crunched as she moved, the sound loud against the oppressive silence. As she pressed deeper into the heart of the house, the air turned cold, biting at her skin, wrapping her in a clammy embrace that felt like the grip of a long-dead hand. Mom! The voice was clearer now, but it had a warped quality, as if it were trapped in a dark void. Each yell fought against the walls, reverberating ominously. The laughter from before now hung in the air like a chilling wind, brushing her cheeks with icy fingers. Hold on, Jamie. I'm coming, she yelled, forcing strength into her voice despite the dread coiling in her stomach. The living room loomed ahead, the door slightly ajar, drawing her in with a pull that felt both inviting and sinister. Cautiously, Claire pushed open the door, heart racing, and stepped inside. The flickering light of a single lamp illuminated the room. The space felt eerily untouched, yet thick with the residue of something long forgotten. Family photos lined the walls, their frames cracked and dusty. In each image, laughter glimmered like a distant memory, warped by time. Hushed whispers seemed to creep from the corners, retreating only to return, taunting her with mysteries she had no power to illuminate. "Jamie!" she cried, but all that met her was the cold air and the relentless ticking of a long-dead clock. She stepped further, searching the shadows, searching for the source of Jamie's voice. As she moved deeper into the room, the atmosphere thickened, surrounding her like a blanket wrapped too tightly. Then came the breeze, a sudden rush that knocked against her back. Claire spun around, her shard of glass held out in front of her like an illusory barrier against the encroaching darkness. The laughter swelled again, louder now, resonating from all corners of the room. "She can't find you, little man," a voice hissed, the words sharp enough to cut through the air. "She'll be lost, just like the rest." "Mom, please." Jamie's voice was now edged with terror, slicing through the darkness, desperate yet somehow muffled, as if he were just beyond the thin veil separating reality from this silent nightmare. Claire rushed to a window, flinging it open, hoping for some escape. The night air rushed in, a brief relief. She leaned out into the stillness, searching the overgrown yard for any signs of life. Her eyes strained against the dark, but nothing odd stirred in the black void, and the oppressive shadows swallowed her call for help. Suddenly, the laughter morphed into a growl, low and menacing, vibrating through the walls. "You think you can save him? Foolish mother. You should have listened." Each word rolled out with a malice that seeped into her bones. She turned away from the window, the spirits taunting her, their laughter echoing in her mind. What if she had made a mistake? What if the darkness was not hunting her child but her instead? As panic began to fracture her resolve, she refused to let fear take root. She moved toward the source of Jamie's cries again, pressing through the shadows. Just as she reached the doorway leading out of the living room, she felt something grab her ankle, a cold, slimy thing. Stumbling, Claire glanced down in horror. A hand. No, a tangled mass of fingers pulling her back, black as pitch. Shrill laughter erupted from behind her, echoing in sinister harmony. "No, no," she screamed, wrenching away just as she felt it tug stronger, its grip tightening like a vice. With a surge of adrenaline, Claire lunged forward into the hallway. The house quaked around her. She could feel the foundation groan under the weight of despair. Whatever had been in the shadows wanted to keep her there, a mere whisper of what it craved. "Jamie!" she cried again, her voice raw. She faltered for a moment, fear clawing at her heart. She had to keep moving. Through the thickening darkness, she pushed toward another door, her senses heightened. Every instinct told her the end was near, the end of the chase, but also the end of all hope. And as she reached the door, it began to open, an ominous light spilling out, illuminating horrors beyond comprehension. Just as the figure stepped through, she recognized it, Jamie. But he looked different, distorted, eyes gleaming unnaturally in the soft glow. "Mom," he whispered, but it wasn't he, the son she knew. "Jamie!" Panic surged as the horrifying truth dawned on her. But then she felt breath on her neck, a chilling whisper that promised fate. Welcome home. What was the house truly after? Would she recognize her son again? Or had he already been absorbed by the darkness? Clara's heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the house. Jamie's twisted figure stood before her, a shadow of the boy she loved, a mirror cracked by darkness. The light behind him flickered unnaturally, casting jagged shapes that danced across the walls like broken dreams. "Mom!" He spoke again, but this time, the familiar lilt of his voice was replaced by something deeper, hollow and resonant. It wrapped around her like a snake, squeezing any hope from her throat. "Jamie!" She stepped back, the warmth of his presence slipping through her fingers. The room warped around her as if the very walls were alive, breathing in her fear. Her mind raced. Was this truly her son? Or had he been changed, claimed by the house? The laughter returned, a cacophony of voices twisting into a single roaring sound that echoed off the walls, each note mocking her. "You can't save him, Claire. He belongs to us now." "No, Claire shrieked, desperation clawing at her throat. She felt the cold creeping back, threatening to slip into her skin. I won't let you take him. As if responding to her defiance, the shadows in the corners seemed to thicken, coiling like serpents prepared to strike. She glanced back to Jamie, whose face twisted grotesquely, his eyes piercing her soul. You have to come, Mom. I need you to see. But see what? The fear surged again, choking her. What have they done to you? Join us. The shadows hissed in a seductive murmur, wrapping around her limbs like creeping vines. She fought against their pull, digging her heels into the wooden floor, but it felt like quicksand beneath her. Jamie! She turned, shifting her gaze back to the boy she once knew. You have to fight. You have to come back. He took a single step forward, and the shadows seemed to dance, draping over him like a cloak. I don't want to be lost anymore. Mom. His voice held a trace of something pure, a fleeting reminder of the love they shared. But before she could reply, the grotesque laughter grew, swirling around her like a storm. He is part of us now. Claire's breath quickened, her mind spiraling into an abyss of doubt and anguish. The weight of despair pressed down on her chest. Could she really save Jamie? And at what cost? In that split second of hesitation, Claire saw the door behind Jamie slowly beginning to close, a narrow strip of light chaotically flickering as it shrank away. Whatever bound him to this horror was also sealing her fate. No, I won't lose you. She lunged past the venomous shadows, throwing herself towards him, the air electric with terror. Just as she reached for Jamie, the darkness surged, attempting to snatch her back. Fingers that not long ago felt warm now clawed at her will to escape. Come with me, she screamed, reaching through the threshold that stood between them. But as her hand grasped his, Jamie's face contorted in pain. His form shimmered, flickering like an old film reel struggling to stay focused. No, you have to go. Save yourself, he cried, desperately pushing against the weight of the shadows. I won't leave you. With a fierce burst of energy, Claire ripped her hand away, spinning around to face the encroaching darkness. The abyss screamed in agony, the shadows shifting wildly. Mom, listen to me. Jamie's voice merged with the cacophony, torn between despair and the promise of salvation. Cold laughter escaped their lips, a mocking celebration of their impending victory. Run, little mother. Run while you still can. Desperation clawed at her throat as Claire turned. She could feel the house pulsing with anger, and her instincts screamed for her to flee. With no plan, no idea of where to go, she sprinted down the hallway, the roaring laughter echoing behind her, mingling with Jamie's fading cries. The darkness wrapped around her as she ran, dragging her back with every step. As she reached another door at the end of the hall, the handle twisted under her fingertips, and the door burst open, revealing a blinding light that split the shadows apart. But before she could step through, doubt crept. Was it really a way out? Would stepping into that light mean abandoning Jamie forever? In that moment, the laughter changed, shifting into something softer, almost sorrowful. Your choice, Claire. Choose wisely. And suddenly, Claire realized that whatever awaited her beyond that door was more than just an escape. A decision loomed heavier than she could bear. The house shook as she stood at the precipice of salvation and the abyss, the remnants of Jamie's twisted form hovering in her mind. What would she choose? Would she face the true heart of darkness or the unknown beyond? As the last echoes of Jamie faded into the void, one question hung in the air, sharper than the glass she still clutched. Would your love save him, or was it too late? Claire hesitated at the threshold, the light flickering like a heartbeat, alive yet disquieting. The choice gnawed at her insides. The laughter faded for a moment, leaving only the ominous thrum of silence. But it wasn't empty. It reverberated with the echoes of Jamie's cries, haunting and desperate, weaving through her mind with shaky resolve. She turned back, determined to confront the shadows. I won't let you win, she yelled, voice trembling as she faced the encroaching darkness. The shadows twitched as if agitated, whispering promises of freedom tainted with malice. Mom, the name slipped through the chaos, more of a plea than a command. Jamie stood trapped, swathed in writhing darkness, his figure flickering like a candle in a draft. You could still save me. Something primal stirred in Claire's chest. Love and fear fought for dominance, each agonizing heartbeat marking the seconds. I'm coming for you, Jamie, she screamed, breaking the spell that held her captive. She took a step forward, plunging into the abyss where forms slithered and howled. The shadows recoiled, but they were cunning. They sliced at her with icy tendrils, their grip fierce as they tried to pull her back into the clutches of despair. Come to us. Claire, don't you want to be with him? They taunted, smoothing over her skin like whispers, stinging with the promises of eternal union, dark and sickly sweet. Never, she spat, recoiling from the enticing touch. The shadows shrieked, their laughter a wretched symphony, and the walls pulsed, vibrating with their fury. Stay, stay with us, they begged, their voices twisting into familiar tones, echoing memories of laughter and warmth. She felt a pull, a sweet siren song attempting to drown out reality. But Jamie's face surfaced in her mind, and she grasped tightly to that image. No, I refuse. With each step into the dark, Claire felt the fire of her love burning brighter, holding the shadows at bay. She could almost taste the rancid fear in the air, mixing with desperation. Jamie! Her voice burst forth like a shot, cutting through the chaos. Please, tell me what to do. By some miracle, clarity broke through, a flicker of Jamie's true self shining through the web of shadows. You have to see the mirror. Find the mirror. His voice was barely a whisper, like silken threads pulling her deeper into the suffocating darkness. Where? She stumbled, navigating through writhing tendrils grasping for her, determined to follow the fading echoes. The shadows coiled tighter, adding their weight to her burden. Down, Jamie insisted, his voice trembling with urgency and despair. And then everything shifted, the air thickening, the walls twisting like a living creature. Refusing to give in, Claire pressed onward, forcing her legs to carry her through the choking gloom. The laughter turned into desperate wails, a cacophony of lost souls pleading for relief, for her to give in. But in her core, she heard Jamie, a beacon amidst the storm, guiding her deeper. Through the wailing wind of despair, she could almost feel the mirror calling, shimmering at the heart of the storm. Could it reveal the truth? Would it give her a way to save him? Stay strong, Mom. Don't let them. Jamie's voice shouted, echoing around her and igniting a flickering hope in her heart. With renewed determination, she crashed through the shadows, the weight of the house pressing down, demanding submission. And then she felt it cold, hard, a chilling reflection. The mirror loomed before her, an archway of darkened glass, its surface swirling like smoke. Claire hesitated, knowing she was on the brink of something sinister. But if Jamie's whispers were true, this was her chance. Look closer as she dared to approach the mirror. The darkness surged, crying out in frustration, desperate to hold her back as Jamie's voice threatened to dissolve in the maelstrom. She reached forward, every fiber of her being screamed in warning, but the love for her son propelled her onward. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find clarity or descend into an even darker abyss? The mirror throbbed with an insistent light, its secrets waiting to be unveiled. What will you see, Claire? The shadows hissed, their urgency rising to a fever pitch. And in that moment, with everything hanging by a fragile thread, she grasped the edge of the mirror and plunged herself into its depths. What lurked within? Would she emerge with Jamie? Or would she find herself lost in the darkness? Claire plunged into the murky depths of the mirror, a jolt of cold rushing through her body like a body of ice. She gasped as images flooded her mind, memories, regrets, laughter entwined with shadows. Staring back at her were endless reflections, a patchwork of her life, of joy and sorrow, woven together like the strands of a fraying tapestry. The voices of countless souls echoed, a haunting symphony of loss and longing. Mom! Jamie's voice cut through the chaos, a lifeline snatched from the depths. Please, you need to break the connection. His words sliced through the fog of memories, anchoring her in the present. What connection? She screamed, her voice trembling, as the oppressive darkness threatened to suffocate her. Around her, the swirling shadows tightened, clawing at her, whispering secrets meant to lead her astray. Claire pressed forward, determined to find that spark of hope nestled within the storm. Look into your heart, Jamie urged, desperation lighting his words. You have to face the truth. The love you have for me is your greatest strength. Don't let them take you. Amid the spectral echoes, Claire sought the warmth of that love, driving deeper. The shadows twisted grotesquely, morphing into faces people she had known, who had once shined brightly before being consumed by darkness. And there, among them, she spotted Jamie, his image flickering like a fragile flame. Jamie, she cried, her heart racing, but the vision distorted, swallowed once more by the encroaching dark. No, stay with me, she shouted defiantly, thrusting through the suffocating shadows. The faces melted into rancid air, the room vibrating with their fury as they pushed against her. Break the cycle. Jamie's voice rose, clear and piercing. This isn't me. They're pretending. They want to trap you here with them. With renewed resolve, Claire focused on the mirrorless surface now smooth as glass, reflecting only her. She saw herself not just as she was, but instead, as a mother, fierce and unyielding. Her heart surged, the memories of laughter with Jamie illuminating the dark corners of her mind. I won't be afraid anymore, she shouted, echoing her truth, channeling all her maternal love into that single thought. As the words spilled from her lips, a blinding light erupted from the mirror, the darkness recoiling like wounded beasts. No, the shadows shrieked, merging into a cacophony of howls, their forms twisting into nightmarish shapes. The room erupted into chaos, but Claire remained firm, her heart radiating like a beacon. Jamie, she stretched her hand toward the glimmering light. I'm coming, just hold on. As if summoned, Jamie's ghostly figure surged forward, his form illuminated by the same fierce light that engulfed Claire. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, love surged, intertwining their spirits, igniting further courage within their hearts. Mom, you can do it! With a fierce shout, Claire shattered the mirror, each fragment exploding like fireworks, releasing a tidal wave of light that swept through the shadows. The air shifted profoundly, the grip of despair loosening as the house itself seemed to groan. Shards of glass fell like raindrops, washing away the grip of darkness, revealing the world hidden beneath. The shadows twisted and hissed, fading into edges of despair, their hold finally broken. Claire felt herself spinning, the warmth of Jamie radiating closer, wrapping them in its embrace. In a brilliant explosion of light, Claire and Jamie emerged from the mirror's depths not just mother and son, but two souls bound by love and resilience. With a gasp, they landed on the cool wooden floor of the living room, the oppressive atmosphere gone, leaving only soft whispers of the past. Claire looked around, the house now bathed in a gentle amber glow. The photos that once cloaked the walls began to shimmer with vibrancy, the laughter of memories filling each corner. The connection had been severed. Claire clutched Jamie tightly, tears streaming down her face, a mix of joy and relief. Are we safe? He asked, his voice trembling. Yes, my love. We are. But the darkness had not vanished entirely. It lurked just at the edges, a reminder of the struggle. They needed to leave to reclaim their life. Claire pulled back, determination coursing through her veins. Come on, Jamie. She whisked him toward the door, heart racing with hope. Let us get out of here. The door swung open, revealing night sky bursting with stars, shining brightly for their return. They stepped through, feeling the cool breeze against their skin, a fresh promise of something new as they walked together under the starlit sky. Jamie's hand tightly clasping hers. Claire held onto the moment. They had survived the darkness. They were free. In that quiet solitude, she realized they were never truly alone. Love was the light that could never be extinguished. The shadows had retreated, but every step forward would be a choice to remember the shadows but not to dwell, to cherish love over fear. The world opened before them, vast and unknowable. A new adventure just beginning. Claire took a breath, heart full of possibility, and smiled. Together, they could face anything. You need to subscribe now to catch every twist and turn of future stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your thoughts on the ending. Your voice matters here. And most importantly, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Be part of our incredible community.